So tonight, Andrew and I are going to talk with you about something called lean. And this is something that I know, are both very passionate about. Something that we believe there's a message here that's important for people to hear. And it's a topic that has really inspired me to spend pretty much the last 7 years of my life teaching about lean, researching lean, and writing this book about lean. Let me just talk a little bit about the lean system and kind of how it relates to the book and how maybe you can learn and start your lean journey if you're interested in doing this. Basically, the book is about engagement. What I've tried to do in the book is to really pull out the essence of lean, the essential parts, so that we can build a bridge from manufacturing to service, because that's a tough bridge to make. And so rather than just describing Toyota like most books do, what I've done is I've kind of built up a model of a system of management from scratch, using the fundamental principles of lean, but referring to it in terms of general management practices and theories of operations, org development, and even psychology. And so by doing that, I think I've ended up with a fairly simple but complete, a very understandable book from the perspective of the business leader. This is really meant to be an executive read, but it also provides tools and details that you can use to start implementing it. There's a 7-step method even if you want to get into a little more detail, and when you do your first lean event, if you're interested, it's a program to help you do that. So I'm really hoping this will be maybe your first book on lean, but I also am hoping it's not your last book, because it's meant to just get you started. Now, I've been interested in engagement for many years. 20 years I spent in senior management in industry. I had 10 years as the owner and CEO of a wholesale distribution company. So I can tell you, I've seen engagement from the trenches. And I know what an engaged employee, how valuable they can be, sometimes in surprising ways. And I know how damaging a disillusioned and disengaged employee can be. So what's kind of disturbing is that when you look at Gallup polls, which have consistently shown that in the United States, 2/3 of workers feel disengaged. So I think it's safe to say that we have an engagement crisis in this country. And I suggest that this crisis is getting even worse. And here's why. Because engagement is becoming even more important today than it ever has been. Now, why is that? Well, for one thing, we have social media, and we have these guys. Smartphones, right, that all have cameras. So what's happening is that our service faults, our problems, are being spread immediately throughout the world. Policies and procedures are fine. We need them. But they're not enough, right? They're not enough. You have to have caring and thinking people who are going to carry out those policies and apply those procedures in the field, in situations, adapt to situations that arise in the field that you can't always predict. Now, the other reason that engagement is getting more and more important has to do with our younger workforce, our millennials. And millennials basically need to feel engaged. Millennials don't really like to be told what to do and just go do it. They need to believe in what they're doing. They need to have a purpose. They need to feel they have a belief. So if they don't like and don't agree with the policy and procedures of the company, they will more than likely move on, just go somewhere else. So if you look at this new kind of transparency and this new kind of worker, then I think it's clear that going forward, if you want to be successful in a service business, you must have engaged employees. There's no option to that. Now, as the business owner, when having basically bought a business that had gone out of business, I was faced with the task of really growing this company, and I recognized the importance of engagement. But it was not easy. This is not easy stuff to do. But I'm very proud to say that we, as a team, were able to put that engagement together, and many of the team members are sitting here on this row here because it really was a family business. And so thank you, all of you who were part of that. But we through building an engaged workforce over 10 years, we went from basically an out-of-business company to one of the most respected and profitable companies in our industry. It led to a sale of the company to a large strategic buyer in Europe, and actually freed me up to do what I always wanted in life, which was to go back and get a PhD. So I did that, had a great 5 years of my life exploring the world of academia. So in 2009, I joined the faculty of Nova, and here I am. The first discovery I made was I learned about Toyota. And that Toyota has an amazing system for engaging their employees. So how do they do that? How do they engage their employees like this? Well, there's been a lot of books written about it. I actually think it's pretty simple. I think what they've understood is this, they've understood that the key to engaging employees is to empower them. To empower them. But to empower them with trust and respect, and that naturally builds engagement. The Toyota Production System, it's basically a means or a way of deploying and channeling empowerment in a way that builds engagement. Really, most of the books are still based on Toyota. They're still manufacturing oriented. They try to make it adaptable, but they use still manufacturing concepts, examples. It's really hard to grasp in service if you're in a service business. The other problem is there's a lot of confusion out there. There's a confusion about the word lean, because there's Lean Six Sigma. Well, is lean the same as Lean Six Sigma? Well, no, it's not. Is lean the same as, well, our business needs to be lean and mean, so is lean about downsizing? No, it's not. Okay? But this confusion exists to this day. I gave my students the best books that were available, but they just weren't really hitting the mark for my students who were mostly in service industries, right? So I began writing notes and then eventually decided, you know what, I really need to work this into a book. And that's where this book came about. So this book really is the result of that 7 years of work. It was just released in December, but this is really kind of the official sort of kickoff of the book. Really briefly, the method, the fundamentals of the method are, when you look at a work process, only do things that your customer cares about. That's it. Only do things your customer cares about. If the customer doesn't care about something, we consider it waste, and we want to reduce it or eliminate it. Okay? So when you apply that philosophy and use these simple, but very powerful tools, 3 things happen. You produce results faster. Why faster? Because now you're not doing a lot of things that you used to do. You're in these cumbersome processes. Number 2, you produce your results better, higher quality. Because what are you doing? You're focusing on the customer. The whole method is intensely focusing on the customer and doing what the customer wants. And then lastly, you're more productive and less costly because you've gotten rid of a lot of waste. Okay? So that's the method. The culture, actually there's quite a few lean techniques for culture building, like the Kaizen teams, the Kaizen events. Those are basically management techniques, way of building the culture. And it can be a little confusing when you first look at all this. And what I've done in the book, I really came after a number of years, recognize there's really 4 fundamental functions going on here. So I've tried to organize and present those techniques in the book according to the 4 functions. In order to empower workers, you first have to set goals. So there's specific lean techniques, Hoshin planning, that is used to set the goals, but communicate them very clearly so the empowered workers know where to go, they have structure. Secondly, there's tools and techniques for training and development. You can't just throw employees out there and say you're empowered. We have to train them, give them the opportunity to succeed. And then we have to organize teams like in these Kaizen situations, because in Lean, the empowerment and the action of the employees happens in a teamwork situation. It's not everybody on their own. So very much of a kind of a partnering attitude. And then lastly, the management style, really important, and as Andrew talked about it, this is where you have to think differently as a manager. Very struggle to try to get people to understand that you can't be a micromanager and be in lean and empowering. You have to understand that if you're going to empower people, you have to be more of a coach and a mentor to reinforce the empowerment. Okay? You can't be a commander and a controller. So once you kind of understand all that, then it really becomes fairly simple, clear. If you're in a small firm, you can apply lean in a very simple and informal way. And as many of my students know, have already started applying it in their businesses. As long as the leader, the entrepreneur, the owner understands lean, is committed to it, you can do it. It's not a huge, costly affair. If you're in a larger company, I know many of you understand the value of empowerment, but you may be saying, how do I really pull this off? This is not easy to do. You may be happy with the way things are going, and you may be skeptical about extending a lot of trust to employees, right? You say, well, David, you don't know my employees. I go, well, I don't know your employees. But what I would say is be careful, because oftentimes success is your worst enemy. Okay? Just because you're doing well now, especially in today's world, doesn't mean you're going to be doing well in the future. Now you might say, well, is lean all I need? Well, no, you certainly need more than lean. These days we have big data, we have analytics, very important, right? Algorithms seem to be taking over the world. Now it's deep learning, right? Deep learning. But here's the thing. With all of that, the human element's still there. We still have human customers, and we still have human employees. If you don't have in your strategy employee engagement and intense focus on the customer, then I suggest you are headed for trouble. You don't have to beat up your employees to make money and to be successful in business. Okay, the best way to be successful is to empower your employees with sincere trust and respect in a way that leads to engagement. Okay? And if you can do that and build an engaged workforce and then focus them on exactly what the customer wants, you're going to be very hard to beat. So in the book, I've tried to show you how effective lean is as a system to do that. I've tried to give you the concepts and the tools to help get you started. And I think the bottom line is, if you want engaged workers, you have to empower them. And if you want to empower them, the best way to do that is with a lean system.